The Telegraph, unsurprisingly, report that Dan Ashworth and others were hurt by Newcastle sporting director Paul Mitchell, saying the club's transfer strategy was, quote, not fit for purpose, unquote. Jules, do you empathize with Ashworth getting his feelings hurt? In fact, do you even believe his feelings are hurt?
Why are you? No, I don't. Why are you hurt by what somebody else is who replaced you? And you knew this was coming. This is what new manager say about the old manager, new sporting director say about the old guy. Well, new CEO would say about the old one. Oh yeah, he ran that company so badly. Now I've got to come here and change everything. Like why? Like why are you hurt? Like if you really are.
I'm Team Paul Mitchell on this one. Not because I think Ashworth was bad at Newcastle, whatever, but because I like the fact that these people speak and they take accountability, right? So Paul Mitchell, by coming out and saying what he did and being critical of the club's transfer business, right? And the way, I think it was more about the organization and the setup and whatever. And look, not fit for purpose, whatever. You know, maybe it's a bit harsh, but he's basically saying, I'm going to do a better job. And if I don't do a better job, this means that you can take me and you can go and, you know, you can crucify me, right? You can criticize me and call me a moron, right? Time will tell whether he's right or not. I don't think there's actually bad blood between them. I don't think Dan Ashworth particularly cares what Paul Mitchell thinks. He's landed a good job at a bigger club. So we move on. But I think the reason I'm Team Paul Mitchell is I want people to step forward and take accountability like he did, like Monchi did at Villa. Directors of football should face the media, face the music, explain themselves. Don't just leave everything to the manager, because managers are asked questions about stuff that they don't know about, stuff they should know about, stuff they can't know about.
FIFPro released a report of the players playing too many games, and both Kevin De Bruyne and Bernardo Silva repeated their complaint that there are too many games.
So, yeah, De Bruyne coming out, and so FIFPro put out the report, which they do every year, showing everybody played 10 billion games, that it's medically unsafe, and blah, 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 and the stress. De Bruyne said the issue is, and he pointed out that there's only 3 weeks between the Club World Cup final and the start of the Premier League season next summer. He says the issue is that UEFA and FIFA keep adding extra matches and we can raise concerns, but no solutions have been found. It seems that money speaks louder than the players' voices. Okay. I have 2 points to say this, and I'm sorry. You've heard me say this before, but this really annoys me. Okay. So, first of all, player voices, you have a union. Refuse to take the pitch. If enough players in your union support you, then you can go and you can really make a statement. Not just your voice. Yeah. Okay, you're one person in an ecosystem of thousands and thousands of professional footballers who make a living doing this. You've got all these colleagues, many of whom do not make the kind of money that you make, right? Yeah. But if you want to make a point, and look, there are solutions, right? You could have a limit, like the same way they do for air traffic controllers or truck drivers. You can only play these many games over so much. You can have you have to have these many weeks mandatory off and whatever, right? Yeah. So you can do something. You have agency other than moaning and complaining. Secondly, you're complaining about UEFA and FIFA. Who do you think FIFA made a deal with to get clubs to come to the Club World Cup? It's Manchester City. It's your employer. Yeah. So don't just go and bump this all on UEFA and FIFA, who, for all their limits and all their many, many flaws, redistribute this money around the world to football clubs and therefore footballers who are a lot less rich than you are. Take it up with your employer. Tell them, I'm not playing 80 games a year. I'm playing 50 games a year. If you want to adjust my contract accordingly, so instead of making $375K a week, I make $300K a week, go ahead. If you don't like me anymore, you want to rescind my contract, fine. I'll go sign with somebody. I'll go play in Saudi Arabia, go on a long holiday there. You have this agency. Yeah. Use the agency. Don't just fall into the trap and think, oh, look, they're greed. Sorry, it just really bugs me. Yeah, do something constructive. Some big teams eliminated from the preliminary round of the Women's Champions League, Jules. Among them, Atletico Madrid and Eintracht Frankfurt. Now, the format is changing, and the current format is there's like a 4-team mini tournament. Is that right?
Yeah.
And
in the same venue.
We won't have this next year, but are you okay with it? Because Jonas Eidevall, the Arsenal coach, even though Arsenal qualified, he doesn't like it.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was the same case last season. For example, and Arsenal were beaten there by Paris FC. You play a semi-final and then you play the two winners play each other in the final, and then that means you go and qualify for the playoffs. Because, by the way, if you win this mini tournament, you're still not yet in the Champions League. There's still another draw for a playoff, and then the teams who win the playoff go into the main draw with all the winners of the big leagues, etc., the likes of Chelsea and PSG and those kind of teams. So it's quite complicated to follow to start with. I think it's a lot more games as well for the players and for the teams. I think you just want to go through it, past it, and then once you're in the main draw, that's your main concern, really. But for Atletico Madrid and then for Frankfurt, two big teams, you're right. It was a disappointment. Atletico lost on penalty to Rosenborg, and they were just not good enough for Ron.
3 Italian teams on to the next round. I think that's unprecedented.
Yeah, that's good. And Arsenal have qualified, beating Rosenborg on Saturday evening. I was at the game, by the way. It was very good. And Arsenal coach Jonas Eidevall complained about the fact that there's just 72-hour gap between games.
I don't understand. Okay. I am prejudiced against Jonas Eidevall for the Emma Hayes incident.
Oh, my God.
What's the name of the Chelsea captain? When he got into her face, the
the
5'2",
girl.
whatever, right? Okay, so I will get that out of the way. However, he's complaining. So he came out and he said 72-hour gaps between games. It's just science. He says it increases the risk of injury. The WSL, the Women's Super League here, has zero concerns about injury. UEFA has zero concerns about it. Science, it's a fact. It impacts injury risk. It's the same in the men's game. It's just that science is one thing and broadcasting money is another thing. Okay, so first of all, I would love to see what science. So if you're telling me that playing after 72 hours versus 96 hours, I would. Hey, here's an idea, right? You have a social media account. You have somebody. Bring these scientific studies so that people can actually assess the risk of 72 hours versus 96 hours, right? That's number one. Number two, I'm going to go out on a limb and suggest that Arsenal's budget is about 10 times that of Rosenborg. So cry me a river here. Use your squad, right? If you're so concerned about the 72 hours versus 96 hours. Would it be better if there was more time between games? Would it be more of a spectacle? Yes. I've been arguing that the top league should go down to 18 teams or even 16 teams for a long, long time. But they don't listen because turkeys don't vote for Christmas. But the reality is you're part of an ecosystem. And to hear you talk about when the women's game has made strides, to hear you saying when you represent Arsenal, who in the Women's Super League Arsenal arguably, along with Doncaster Bells, historically the most important club in the women's game in English football, make your voice heard. How many games do they play in the WSL? 22? Right?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah. So were you complaining about playing 22 games?
No, I think it's more broadly. It's like the men's. It's like the men's. I think it's a fair comment. Okay. You don't want to play every 3 days.
There's one difference. Those women that you lead are professionals, right? The broadcasting money they earn is part of what allows them to be professional. That and the fact that Arsenal, like many other clubs, they bankroll the women's team from the men's team. If you want to have professional facilities, if you want to have women pay professional contracts, show me an economic model that works. Don't just go and crap on about broadcasting money and blaming TV companies. And
I think it's just about the calendar. He's saying it's not. I think this is the wrong.
He literally brings up science is one thing, broadcasting money is another thing.
The calendar. But you've said it many times for the women's game. The calendar makes no sense. And that they should just look at the calendar and around in the calendar. But then you would avoid.
This is why they play these games during the men's international break, so that they can get more media attention and get more eyeballs. I don't know. You saw this game in person. If I had to find this game on television, I don't even know where to begin. But that is the idea. Let's play it during International Week, where people might want to watch women's club football.
But it doesn't have to be early in September either, when they've just come back from pre-season, when nobody has started their leagues yet or anything like that. I think his point was just not about these 2 games in particular. It's more broadly what you can do with the calendar to avoid having players, which is the same for the men's game, playing every 3 days all the time. I think that's just what he means.
I don't know, but they seem like maybe he's taken out of context. Maybe he had a much more reasoned thing. But it really gets my goat, especially in the women's game, where if we want it to grow, we have to come up with a model that works, that provides access to the most women, so on.
That's what he says. For example, that playoff to go into the Champions League, the first leg is on the same day of match day 1 of the men's Champions League. What exposure? So you're going to play the same night that you will have all the men playing their first game of the Champions League.
That's
all those
totally suboptimal. That's totally suboptimal.
And I think this is what he means.
When can you play that game?
Yeah, but I think this is what he means by the sense of, okay, in this case, it's the 72 hours between those two Champions League matches. But overall, I think he means like this calendar makes no sense. The 72 hours between this mini group of Champions League, that makes no sense. The fact that we're going to play Champions League for the women the same day of the men makes no sense.
He made the point, 72 hours so that you don't have to stay an extra night, right? You know what? Again, for Arsenal,
who doesn't have to stay an extra
what?
Night? Who doesn't have to stay an extra night?
In the neutral venue, so they say one night's hotel room. That was. I didn't put that in this quote that I printed here in this paper.
Yeah,
but that was part of his
for
argument.
example, for them was in Arsenal, so for them it doesn't.
No, but for the other teams,
for the other
right?
teams, yeah.
For the other teams, maybe it really makes a difference in their budgets.
Yeah, no, for
because
sure.
This is the reality of it. I just wish people couldn't, rather than just looking at themselves in their own little situation, would understand they're part of a bit. Otherwise, let's have a women's Super League. Look, I don't think this would be a bad idea because this is one of the issues with women's football. You've got Barcelona, Arsenal, Paris Saint-Germain, Juve. They have a million times the budget of these smaller ones.
Yeah.
Maybe they should think of some sort of Super League type format, maybe run by UEFA, whatever, where they just play each other. Because at this point, they might as well be playing a different sport. Memphis Depay is on his way to Corinthians as a free agent. Jules, I absolutely love
this is going to be great. And we talked about Iker Muniain the other day going to Argentina, for example. Jamal Lewis. Okay, he's not Memphis. But I like the fact that European players now, which before you would rarely see players making that journey from Europe to South America. It was always the other way around. This time they open for it. Dimitri Payet obviously is one of them, who also gone to Vasco, has really enjoyed his time over there, kept them up, saved them against relegation. And I just love it. I love it that now it's another option for you.
I think the original playmaker, I could be wrong on this, was, you remember Petkovic, who played briefly for...
I mean, we said him when we talked about him when Payet went.
So he became a legend in South America, in Flamengo, I think. I like this idea. If you're there for the look, he's going to make less money, but that's fine. You're playing in a place where they wrote football history. You've already played at Old Trafford, and you've already played at the Camp Nou. So you're already, and obviously with Atletico. So you've already played for these massive, big European clubs. You're saying, I want to have one more experience. It's not just about the money for me. I absolutely love this. I wish more people would challenge themselves this way. Hint, hint, Adrian Rabiot.
Yeah.
No, not here.
Meanwhile, Filip Kostic is on his way to join Jose Mourinho in Turkey. Most cost saving from Juve, Gab?
This is the ultimate hint that they're going to play 3 at the back. If they don't already, I don't know. Because he's just going to sit there and ping crosses with his little left foot. And look, I think he can do that really, really well. Had a ton of assists at Juve. Yeah. And for Juve, big savings. Jules, time to check in on our pal, John Textor. That's right. It's the JT update. We teased it. We mentioned him a few times before, but we're not done. So what did the gift that keeps on giving do this time?
Well, this time he's sacking his Lyon sporting director, David Friot, who used to be at Manchester United. Not happy with the recruitment in the summer, especially with the lack of sales, because obviously, as we've explained before, they budgeted in front of the French FFP that they would sell well and raise a lot of money with players' sales, which they didn't. And I think David Friot, there's more deeper issues than that. But David Friot is about to be let go.
So, in terms of the sanction that they could face, is it a transfer ban? Is it a fine?
We don't know yet, because Textor can put some of his money in to...
So as long as he puts some of his
gap,
money, which he also needs to buy Everton,
supposedly. Sure. And I would love to see him putting a member of his family as sporting director. John, that would be so you. Put your wife or your son-in-law, somebody instead of David Friot as a sporting director, and see how that goes.
It's so odd to me to sack a sporting director sort of as soon as the window closed. I know it's because of outgoings that didn't happen, but surely there's...
I know, give them a bit of time to see what, especially the new signings could do.
It just seems bizarre. But then again, they seem to spend freely and sell nobody. Who did they want to sell other than Veretout, who they were hoping to?
No, so
Veretout was at Marseille.
Yeah. No, they wanted to sell Tolisso, Cacré, Cherki, Lacazette, and they're all there.
Okay, so Lacazette and Tolisso, old, presumably make a lot of money. Ryan Cherki, was he a victim of the fact that...
No, they agreed to deal with Fulham. He didn't want to go. and then he wanted to go to PSG or Dortmund, but they could not agree a deal with Lyon. You've got the Nuama story, which obviously is incredible, that we mentioned before, where he fled his medical to go to Fulham because he didn't want to go to Fulham and that nobody knew where he was.
Can I say something? Fulham Stadium, Craven Cottage, is just down the road from where I live. The way these French players crap all over
Nuama
Fulham
is not French.
and Craven Cottage.
He's from Ghana, so he's not French.
Okay. Or, sorry.
It's
Plays
just-
from
look,
France.
what's wrong with he wanted to stay in Lyon, not go to London and Fulham. So
Fulham's not bad. It's not a
No.
horrible place. Why are you...
he just prefers his life.
What, the life in Lyon?
I don't know.
He likes walking up that steep hill.
He's buying a house there.
All right.
Jude Bellingham is launching his own YouTube series. Gab, this won't be like Cristiano's though.
No, apparently it's not going to be. Cristiano's is more of a talk show where he talks with Georgina and giggles and laughs, and sometimes Rio Ferdinand too. Jude's not doing that. Apparently, it's called Out of the Floodlights, and apparently he's collected all this behind-the-scenes footage from his past year. He's going to be releasing it on YouTube for free.
Oh, nice.
It's funny because obviously the publicity people all say it's going to be unfiltered. And I'm like, okay. The mere fact that he controls his people, probably his dad.
Yeah.
They literally employ the people who film him.
Yeah.
They employ how it's put together and how it's shown.
Edited.
By definition, it's not unfiltered. Just as Pep Guardiola, the All or Nothing is not unfiltered. There is a massive filter.
Massive filter.
Now, it doesn't mean it's not going to make it's going to be bad TV.
No,
I think it's going to be
it should be
interesting.
good, yeah.
Bellingham, for all his faults, is a really engaging, intelligent young man. I mean, I say faults because obviously stories came out of the England camp where some people didn't like him. But so I'll be watching this. But just please, and this isn't him. It's the publicity. Don't call it unfiltered. It's anything but.
Jan-Dirk van der Zee, a director at the Dutch FA, says that they're considering scrapping offside at amateur level to combat violence against linesmen and referees. Gab, is sad that it's come to this.
Yeah, it also seems like a bit of an overreaction. There was a linesman who was actually killed, but this was in 2012, years ago. I think it's very simple. I think, they have a rule that only captain can speak to match officials.
Yeah.
And I understand at amateur level, we've played at that level. First of all, it's hard to detect offsides.
It is.
And secondly, maybe who knows what the linesmen are like. You might make mistakes.
Yeah.
I like it better, actually, back in the olden days when it was one guy from each team running the lines.
Yeah.
I have less of an issue with that. But you can't scrap
happens a
offside
lot.
because
Yeah.
it's no longer football if you scrap offside.
Exactly.
That's I hope this is some kind of provocation. I hope people, it's clear that referees need more protection than they're getting, especially at grassroots level. But scrapping, this is silly. Vincent Aboubakar scores the only goal as Cameroon beat Namibia 1-0. But Jules, sadly, the story with the indomitable Lions once again is off the pitch.
It is still going on between Samuel Eto'o, who is the president of the Cameroonian FA, and the sports minister of the country, where they are it's not even they don't see eye to eye, they just hate each other so much, and they're just fighting all the time. Eto'o threatening to play literally the under-21s in this World Cup qualifier. There's two coaching staff, one chosen by Eto'o and a coach, and one chosen by the minister of the sports minister and the government. It's just absolutely.
Which of the two was there for this game?
So at some point we got to a point where Eto'o's head coach was taking training, and then the sports minister's head coach was taking the game, which is just like, can you imagine?
Well,
it's just it was that bad.
They're sharing.
Yeah.
It works so well
Sharing
for Roy
is
Evans and
caring.
Julien.
Exactly. I mean, I don't know where this is going. I mean, no, the only way this is going to go is at some point Eto'o is going to go, or the sports minister is going to go. This is not sustainable. This is crazy.
Maybe
really,
Eto'o should
really
speak to the prime minister or president and get himself named sports
But the thing
minister.
is, you can't touch Eto'o. Eto'o is your greatest ever player. He's loved by everybody, although he's losing a bit. The other day, there was an interview that he did, I don't know if you saw it, where he tells this story about when he was at Inter and Leonardo was his coach, and he wanted to go partying in Paris, so the private jet was ready, but the last time he could fly out from Milan was something like 10 p.m. So he said to Leonardo, who was the coach at the time, hey, take me off at halftime. By then I would have scored a hat trick, and then I can take my flight and go and party in Paris. to what Leonardo said, yes, no problem. Eto'o says after 38 minutes, I've scored 3 goals. He takes me off at half time. I get the flight with my mates. We go and party in Paris. The problem is, Eto'o has never scored 3 goals for Leonardo at Inter. Never. If you look at all the games he played for Leonardo, and certainly not by half time. So I'm not really sure. Maybe he got the. But he kept saying Leonardo was my friend. He was my guy. So he said yes to me going to party in Paris. So I don't know where he got the confusion, but yeah, that's completely BS.
Well, age is a horrible thing. It's going to affect all of us unless we die
All
young.
of us. Romania even beat Kosovo 3-0. But Gab, how about the youngsters on the bench?
How about that? Mircea Lucescu, 79
Legend.
years young, returning to coach Romania after 38 years.
Yeah.
It's amazing. The funny thing is, I don't think this guy has. Obviously, I went back and I saw like the pictures of him 38 years ago when he was 41 and took and left the Romania job. And yes, he looks different compared to then.
Yeah.
But I don't think he looks different than he did 10 years ago or 20 years ago. It's like time has stopped.
That's true. And it's a good time to be back. It's a good generation from Romanian players.
It's a very good generation. It's an interesting choice because obviously with Dennis Mann and all the kids they have coming through, you kind of wonder would they be better off with a younger coach or whatever. But no, they've gone for him. I'm sure he's got all sorts of assistants. Hopefully he's grooming because let's face it, you are 79. But it's sweet. It makes me feel really young seeing Mircea Lucescu out there.
Oh, that's good.